Hey everyone, Kirk here, and welcome back to the Geek Effect. In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the Marvel Legends series retro carded Spider-Man, and this figure is one that I've been looking to get my hands on for quite some time. I was able to do so a few months ago by searching online, and I found a seller who had one of these on hand for a pretty decent price in my opinion. Like, if you guys know anything about this collection, and especially this figure, one thing's for sure is that the prices have definitely escalated on this since its release back in 2020, and so I was happy that I was able to find a good deal on this and be able to add it to my collection, because for those of you guys who have been following me over on Instagram, I have been sharing that I've been slowly collecting the figures from this collection, trying to complete Wave 1 and also the figures in between, and eventually to get my hands on the figures from the recently announced Wave 2 figures that'll be releasing next year. So I'm looking forward to those. But this is a figure that I think is probably my favorite out of the entire collection, because besides the fact that I do love Spider-Man like a lot and the classic suit is very iconic, this just looks like a really fun figure, especially with its posability and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to getting him out of the box and seeing what all he can do. For starters, with the packaging, I do want to say I love what Hasbro decided to do here, and that's that they took direct inspiration from the 90s Toy Biz line of figures that was released for the 90s animated series for Spider-Man.
Web Racer Spider-Man and action figures sold separately.
And I think that going with this look just gives it more character compared to if they were to go with the style of packaging and the usual packaging that they go with for Marvel Legends figures, like the Shang-Chi line of figures. Like, this just gives it some character, and I love that they went with that look. Starting at the top, you have the Spider-Man logo with Spider-Man on top of the text, so that's a nice touch. You also have the Marvel Comics 90s style logo in the left-hand corner, and so that's cool as well. When you move down to the side, you have some more info, which says superposable action, which is reminiscent of how the Toy Biz line of figures used to tell you the functionality of the figure on the side of the box, and so that's a nice touch. I actually believe that that's what one of them said on one of the Spider-Man figures that they released, so that is pretty cool if that's the case. When you move down to the side, you also have another image of Spider-Man in a web swinging pose, and then his name at the bottom of that, with the spotlights beaming up on the billboard, just like how the packaging did back in the day. You also have this purple and pink and blue sort of tone to the back with the city buildings in the backdrop, so that's nice as well. It's exactly how the packaging used to look, and so I like that they wanted to have the accuracy of that in comparison to the Toy Biz packaging as accurate as possible. Flipping the figure to the back, you have some more artwork and info and stuff about this wave of figures. Starting at the top, you have the Spider-Man logo once again with a picture of Spider-Man in his web swinging pose, the exact same one on the front of the box. You have his name, and then you also have a bit of info on Peter Parker, or Spider-Man, which says, bitten by a radioactive spider, Peter Parker now possesses all the arachnid's attributes. He's the amazing Spider-Man. When you move over to the left-hand side, you have some more artwork as well, which has this blueprint sort of sketch, which just tells you about the figure. It just lets you know that you can swap the heads in and out, so that's a nice touch. When you look at the bottom, you have some more info on the characters, which lets you know what characters you get from this wave back in 2020. So you have Marvel's Electro, Peter Parker, Green Goblin, Gwen Stacy, and Daredevil. These are all some good looking figures, and a lot of them I have, except for Green Goblin, which I'm still trying to get my hands on, but I'm sure in due time I will eventually have him in my possession. I actually have the Peter Parker figure right here with me, and it's a pretty cool figure. This was actually the very first Legends figure I got when I got back into collecting action figures and everything like that, and it was a fun figure, and it's also the reason why I ended up getting more of the retro collection figures, and have now since have tons of figures on my shelf compared to what I thought I would have when I first picked that figure up. But it's all good. I have been enjoying collecting, and it's nice to be able to have figures like this in my collection. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this guy unboxed and take a closer look at the retro Spider-Man figure. Alright, so here is Spider-Man out of the box, and man, this is a good looking figure. I love what Hasbro has done here with this guy, and it leaves me very impressed. The body sculpting of this entire guy is amazing, and even the paint job really carries that look of Spider-Man with outstanding quality. I just love the paint job on it with the web design, and although I did notice a few defects in it when it came to the mask area where it's not aligned, that wasn't a big deal for me because the rest of it seems to be very clean. I'm not noticing any other issues with the paint job on this guy. And so that does leave me very happy and satisfied with this figure. And when it came to the posability, I didn't test it all the way, but I got to mess around with it a bit when unboxing this figure. And it's not messing around when it says superposable action. A lot of the joints that you see on this all have some sort of articulation in it. And so that allows you to get some very nice poses, which I'm looking forward to doing, especially when taking photos of this guy. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get a closer look. Moving in closer to the figure, I'm very impressed with how the head sculpt and the paint job on the head turned out. I really love the look of the web pattern. It looks very accurate to what you see in the comics, what you see in the show, and I think they did a good job with it. Like I said, the only issue I have with the head sculpt would just be the slight defect in my figure when it comes to the center area where the web pattern is. It's not aligned. Like if this was towards the back of the head, I wouldn't have much of an issue if it had happened back there, but this is where you are going to be looking at the figure the most, especially if you're taking photos of it and if you're making a video of it like how I'm doing right now. So it does stand out. So that's the one issue I have with it. But other than that, everything else looks pretty clean on it. I do love the fact that the eyes are sculpted on versus having it painted on instead. That's a nice touch, and it adds some texturization to the figure, so that's good. When you look towards the back, you can see how the web pattern does curve inward towards the back of the head, and so that's nice. And then also looking at it when it connects to the neck, it all seems to be pretty aligned, and so there's no complaints there. Moving down towards the chest area of his torso, I do love the pattern going on there. It looks very seamless with the rest of the paint job starting at the neck and then moving down, and even with the arm joint areas right here, and same thing over here. It all looks to be pretty good, and the sculpting for the ab detailing and all the other muscles and everything like that looks very nice. You can see all that detail. Like if you were to take some photos of this character and some good lighting, like you could get some nice shadows and everything going on there and really have the muscles and everything stand out in those photos. So I love the detail going on there. Moving on to the arms, you have some more of the web pattern that you see from the show, from the comics, and it all looks nice. I think that they definitely did nail it. Like this is a very meticulous sort of process to get this done, because it's a whole bunch of lines just going around his suit and everything like that, and curves and how it has to connect and everything, and they seem to really handle it nicely. You have some more detail in the sculpting for his, like I said, ab area, and then you have some more pattern right here for the web. Same thing going along the waist for that sort of belt look. That's right there, and that looks good. When you flip the figure around, that's where you have some more paint job over here with the classic Spider logo, and I think they did a good job with that in my opinion. It looks very close to what you see from the comics and from the show, and although I do notice some slight fading on mine still seems to be holding its color very well, so I am glad that it is. Down towards the leg area, that's where you get some more sculpt work right here, and that all looks fantastic with all the muscular areas of his thigh. Moving down to the calf area and everything, it all seems to be handled very well, especially on this leg. And when you flip it around to the back, you can see a bit more of that sculpting back there, and that all looks nice. And it's this sort of detail that really makes these Marvel Legends figures stand out. When you think of the fact that, you know, you only paid like 20 to 22 bucks or so on this figure back when it was released in 2020, and for that sort of price, for this amount of detail, is pretty solid in my opinion. I think that it's well worth the money, you know, instead of going to pay $200 and upward for like a Hot Toys figure or something like that. Like, especially if you love the show and that sort of retro look, I would say that this is worth it. Now, of course, you can't get it for that price now because I got this aftermarket prices, and so it is much higher. But if you think that you really want this figure, I would still say it's worth it. Just, again, do try to find a good deal on it, because prices do tend to get a bit crazy on this guy. Moving down towards the leg, you also have some more of the pattern on his boot area, and so that paint job looks nice. Everything seems to be very seamless in the toe area leading up to the ankle and everything like that. That all looks pretty decent in my opinion. I'm not noticing any issues in that detail, and so that's pretty much it for the paint job and the detailing. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the accessories. For accessories, I do feel like this figure is lacking when it comes to that department, and the reason why is because it only has 3 accessories. The first being an alternative head sculpt for the figure, and it does look very nice, I will say that. It does have the squinting eyes versus the somewhat more open eyes that this figure comes with when you unbox it. And I do like how that looks. I will also probably be using this head sculpt more just because of the fact that the printing or the paint job on it is all aligned compared to the one that came on the figure already, like especially towards the front area where the default head had that issue where nothing was aligned in that more visible area. This one is all aligned from what I can tell, and I'm not having any issues with that. You also get 2 hands, which are fisted hands, and they look nice as well. They have that nice punching sort of look that Spider-Man would definitely be using, and so I don't have many issues with that. I do love the paint job on it, and it seems to be very clean, so no complaints there. It just feels like this figure could definitely have the use of more hands, like especially the more open hands if you wanted to pose him doing a handstand or something like that. I know that some people did switch out the hands with another set of Spidey hands from a different Spidey figure, and I know that they said that it works pretty well. It does match the color and everything of this one nicely. I don't have that figure, and I don't remember what the figure is exactly. Maybe one day I'll be able to find those hands and be able to swap it out so that I could have some other choices for this guy, but I do think that this is one of the weaknesses when it comes to this figure. It definitely needed some more accessories to it. Now, if you still were looking for some more accessories for this figure, I would recommend getting your hands on the retro Peter Parker from this collection, because that would definitely fit well with this body mold and the whole paint job and everything like that. The 2 head sculpts that Peter Parker comes with are actually the Peter Parker head with the glasses, and then the Spider-Sense style head where it's half and half of the Peter Parker face and then the Spider-Man mask, and that looks very well on this figure. I think it definitely works, so that's just one of my recommendations. Definitely get your hands on that figure, especially if you have this Spider-Man figure. When it comes to the articulation on this figure, I am very impressed. The box was not joking around at all when it said superposable action, and that's because this guy has a lot of articulation in it, just as you'd expect, because Spider-Man is a very flexible character. He's very nimble and everything like that, and that's definitely the feel I get off of this figure's articulation. Starting with the head area, you do have that usual 360-degree spin, and you have some head tilt from left and to the right in this figure's head. You can also lean it backward fairly decent. It does have this gap in the back of the neck, which isn't the most pleasing to the eye in my opinion, because it just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, but I believe that's just because the look they were going for was to have that neck look seamless, kind of like how the Shang-Chi and Wenwu figures did, but then they decided to swap it out, and they at last minute seemed to just like have this little notch area cut out so that you can have some head tilt backward, and so it does the job, but it just does leave that gap open in the back, which isn't the most pleasing. You can get some head tilt towards the front area too, but it's not that far, but it's not a big deal. It does allow some articulation there. When you move over to the arm area, that's where you have these nice butterfly joints, which compared to other Marvel Legends figures, this is very nice and flexible, because with others, the usual arm tilt would kind of let you to go inward like this with this joint right here, and then it kind of stops there, and then you can also angle it up usually like that. But with the butterfly joints, these allow you to get the figure arms to move inward even further, and same going outward, and so you can get some nice posing out of that thanks to those joints. You also have the usual bending in the elbow joint area that goes as far in as that, and rotation right there. Same thing in the wrist area for the hands, so you have some tilt in the hand. You also have some tilt right there, and then the rotation going all the way around. Same thing on this arm as well. When you move towards the mid-torso chest area, right here you have some articulation where that can rotate all the way around, and then you also have a bit of angling and tilt right there from side to side and back and forth as well. You can also see that there's some more articulation right here towards the waist area where that can move all the way back like that, and that's got some nice tilt, like you could have him do a backflip sort of pose, or you could even angle it inward and he can hunch over much further compared to other Legends figures, and I love that about this figure. Moving down towards the leg area is where you have some more articulation
this area does rotate all the way near the thigh area. Same thing on this leg. And then you also have some knee bending right here in that knee joint. Same thing on this leg as well. And that will allow for some nice posability. Like if you want to have him jumping mid-air and doing this sort of pose where he's leaping into action with the arms arched back, and that looks very nice. You also have some more articulation in the ankle area, and that looks good too, because usually what I'm used to when it comes to Legends figures is that that's just one piece and this is just one piece, but they decided to add that right there, which just allows for some more articulation, some more posing in the figure, which is good. You also have some more articulation in the leg where you have the foot joint right here, and so that has some angling right there to the right and to the left, and then you can also tilt it back and tilt it inward just like that. Same on this foot, so that's good. It's just all this articulation will definitely allow you to get some very nice poses with this figure, and it just really leaves me satisfied with how this guy is.
So overall, I'm very impressed with what Marvel Legends and the Hasbro team was able to bring to the table when it came to this figure. It's very detailed and super posable, just like it says on the box. You can get some nice posing out of this figure due to all the moving parts and everything on it. And the paint job and detail and the sculpting on this figure is pretty good, in my opinion. Now, one thing I would say to kind of nitpick with, I guess, when it came to this figure is I did notice last minute that the pegs on the arms near the elbow joint and everything like that are red. I think if they had went pinless, this would definitely have solved that issue. Now, this is something that you could easily customize. Like if you got the same tone of paint, you could easily paint over that, and you know, it's said and done. Maybe that's something I might consider later down the line, but it's not a big deal. It's just one of those things that does kind of stick out if you're really looking deep into this figure to see all the detailing and everything like that. That is something that will stand out. But I'm sure with time, they will definitely make improvements when it comes to this body mold and consider going pinless, because just imagine like an all pinless Spider-Man Marvel Legends figure would be insane, like really, really nice to have in the collection. And so maybe that's something that we'll look into doing later down the line. Now, as I stated before, there are going to be many other Marvel Legends Retro Collection Spider-Man videos coming down the line. I am considering making Venom the next video, but I know I also have another villain, which would be Electro. Just let me know in the comment section below which one you guys would like to see first. Would you guys like to see Venom before Electro or Electro before Venom when it comes to taking a look at the villain characters? I think next week I'm definitely going to be looking at the Gwen Stacy figure because that looks really nice, and I would like to have Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker side by side, but we will see what happens with those videos. It's going to be a lot of work going into those and getting them done and taking the photos, and I could not be more excited about that. If you guys do want to stay up to date with these videos that will be coming out and any of the photos that I do share, be sure to go ahead and follow me over on Instagram and Twitter as well, because I do share from time to time the photos that I take and any behind the scenes sort of process when it comes to this content. And, you know, I do appreciate your guys' support. That being said, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you all later. Peace out.